So let's get into the first benefit of niching down, and that's going to be operational efficiency. So let's talk a little bit about why this works, and by limiting your number of practice areas for streamlined, repeatable processes. So as I mentioned, there's a lot of different varieties of law firms, and I would say that some of the law firms that don't fit into this bucket of what I'm talking about are really two groups come to mind. Number one, I would say the small town lawyer who is kind of a generalist within a smaller community, someone who can do wills, who can do a little bit of criminal, real estate closings, like different stuff like that. That's one area where I do think it, generally makes sense to have multiple practice areas because, you're not really trying to grow, or you have a limited growth trajectory. I would put it that way. You're still obviously trying to grow your revenue, but by being in a limited market like that, you're going to cap out, right? You're only going to have a certain number of criminal cases each month or quarter that are available. The other group that I don't really think fits into this as well is one of your larger kind of legacy law firms, one of the shops that has been open for a long time and over the course of time has added divisions. So this is this is a type of law firm that, maybe probably first started with a really specific specialization, right? They were really good at one thing, and then as they've gotten bigger and bigger, they've kind of capped out in their market with getting the cases that they really want in a particular area, and so they're looking for new areas of opportunity, and that can be good when you have basically gone to the zenith or the maximum of your total addressable market. Really, who I'm talking about in this video is I think a lot of small business law firms, right? Small law firms in the United States who, maybe you're doing a couple of practice areas and not really choosing to go all in on one. And they're not hitting the total addressable market there. So one of the key aspects here is that you can do a better job of creating streamlined, repeatable processes. So as a lawyer, when someone comes in, you have multiple practices, especially if you're a solo, and one day you're doing an immigration case, the next day you're doing an estate plan, and then the next day you're going to jail to get somebody out for that. There's no way for you to be an expert at all of those things, right? And so maybe you're stronger on one and you kind of have a lot of experience with that. But in another area like criminal, it's not really your strong suit, right? And there are other people at the courthouse who are, in that courtroom every day doing these types of cases. That puts you a leg down from a service perspective, but it also just makes it harder, right? So when we started our agency 8 years ago, we would take a lot of different people, right? Our focus was always lawyers, but we were also taking, certain friends, or we would get referrals from existing clients like, hey, my cousin, has a certain type of business, and, can you do the same thing for them? And, probably the biggest, mistake I ever made was, taking a opportunity to provide social media content for a chain of sushi restaurants that are rock and roll themed in Alabama. So you heard that right, rock and roll themed sushi in Alabama. And, I've got no business talking about sushi or rock and roll in Alabama. And nonetheless, we had this mindset of, we needed where we wanted to grow, and it was an opportunity to increase our revenue. Seemed at the time, hey, we can probably do this because we're doing social media content for other people, and it'll just take some legwork and research. But it predictably did not really end up working out, and a big part of this was that we had to reinvent the wheel every time that we started working with someone like this. Every time we got a new client, even within the law side, with a really unique practice area that we didn't have much experience in, and had a very different type of customer acquisition requirement, or it was a different path, to get those customers. And so we would get into those with mixed results. But the biggest thing was trying to go and create a successful campaign was just enormously challenging, because we would have to, do it custom basically every time, right? And so as we grew, when we took on those more custom projects, it was me personally who was having to run points on those. And in order to scale, you have to get out of a certain portion of the day-to-day activities, right? Ideally, you're getting out of most of the fulfillment, right? So that you can do other parts of the business. And so this limited our ability to grow, because I was constantly going back into, the operations, and I was really the only one who could do that, or it would take a long time for me to try and, come up with a strategy and then go educate our team members. And so, as soon as we could, we stopped accepting outside clientele like that. And we, came up with more specific, repeatable processes that we could use for every single client, and we could do it the same way. And this way, our team really started to learn one singular process so that they could be world-class at it. So they could, really understand it, and just build that muscle memory, right? That benefit of doing it getting the repetition in, something like 10,000 times, right? Like the Malcolm Gladwell book. And as you do this, you can get things done faster, you can get things done at a higher quality, and ultimately at really a lower cost, because you're not spending nearly as much time going into like the prep stage of it. You already know what works, and you can dive right into it. And so to apply this to yourself, if you're an estate planning attorney, you can pretty much create these workflows within your business, which, for me, what that means is, basically just showing like a flow chart of what should happen when someone utilizes a particular service with you. And, so as they sign, then they're going to go to the intake questionnaire, then they're going to go to get the initial review by the paralegal, then they're going to, meet the lawyer, and, and go on, right? And so, by doing that, you have very predictable workflows and steps that people are going to take to fulfill the service, right? At the end of the day, your word is your reputation. And if you're unable to provide a really good world-class experience, people are going to go elsewhere, right? And that's the same with any business. And it's certainly true with legal services. And so to truly get out of those matters without, you obsessing over them and killing yourself and not having any time left in your day, because you're trying to sell, you're trying to fulfill, you're trying to market and do all these other things with the business. The only way to get there is through repeatable, systematic processes for your team that they can follow and do with a high degree of quality. And so in any of the practice areas that we work on, whether it's bankruptcy, criminal, family, immigration, personal injury, estate planning, all of those, there's going to be ways that you can carve out these workflows, right? And you can carve them out based on, your individual products, right? Or the services that you do. So you want to think about how to productize those services, and you're going to, benefit immensely from this, as opposed to trying to do it custom every single time and reinventing the wheel. Would you choose a jack of all trades or a master of one when your legal future is on the line? The answer, of course, is to choose a specialist every single time.